Well, good afternoon, and I know that you're going to be getting your meal, so please, I hate to interrupt your lunch, but I'll try to draw your attention to the screen sometimes. I've got a lot of information, and I have to thank the team up front who actually spent all of the last couple of months preparing all these slides, preparing all the information, and I can see they're probably looking a bit stressed that I only brought one piece of information up for me. So literally, they have been working for months, and the data that they provided me, I was like, I'm never going to remember this. So then and Dale, my executive officer, most of you know, said, don't read. I'm like, okay, I won't read. So I'm going to bring this one piece of paper and I'm going to refer to it when I get there and you'll know why. So, you know what? And so I got the team up front who helped me lead the organization, and then I've got the officers here and the civilian employees mixed throughout the room who do all the work. I am really just the figurehead selling the story. And I say, I am proud every day by all the work that goes on, and you will see the amount of work that goes on, what I say to you in the next slide. So I was from Malton Neighborhood Night Out last year, so we save the pictures, we don't just take them, so thought I'd start with that one. So, and as soon as I figure out where to point, we're going to be well on our way. My guys are like, don't look at me, it's not us. Well, I'll poke to the screen, how's that? Oh, see, this would be a quick presentation. Okay, so, and I really apologize to those sitting in the back of the screen, back of the room. You're probably thinking, okay, we can't see that far. So basically, this is just a, you know, the whole, what are all the things that police officers do? I can tell you, we respond to hundreds of thousands of calls each year. We receive almost 1,000 911 calls a day, and some of the words involved in this slide basically show you what we do. So. And all the things that we're going to talk about are in the slides, so I'm just going to go to the next one. So I want to first introduce, because I think it's sometimes, you know, it's really good to hear the names all the time, but it's also good to put a name and a face together. So I know everyone was introduced earlier, the chair of my Police Services Board, and my vice chair, Norma Nicholson's here as well. So, you know, no pressure. Let's do a speech. Let's get the chief to do a speech, and then bring her bosses in the room with you. So thank you for that. So. And then to start out with a presentation I'd never seen before, talking about the value of the officers, and I'm like, uh-oh, I haven't seen this slide deck. What's going on here? So, and then of course, on March 2nd, we welcomed 2 new deputy chiefs. So most of you in the room know Deputy Chief Dave Jarvis up front. Ingrid Berkeley-Brown is here as well as a new deputy. Mark Anders and Chris McCord are currently on vacation. Lucky them. So, but if not, they would be here as well. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the workload and some of the trends and the pressures, because often when myself and members of my executive team go out, we're often told that, you know, I called the police and it took an hour, or it took 2 hours, or I had a car accident and this is what's happening. So last year we went to our Police Services Board, and they, you know, thankfully gave us the support to hire more officers than we've had in previous years. And, you know, so this is me practicing for next week before when I go to Regional Council, and I was telling the councillors at the table, you're going to see a very similar slide deck next week, to talk about the pressures and the workload facing. So I know when we did our community survey a couple of years ago, we had 93% of our community said they felt safe, and the officers were professional and courteous, and really the highest numbers we've ever received. But I think it's because over the last few years, we've been changing the mindset. We've been doing a lot of proactive policing, proactive initiatives, working with Safe City Mississauga and other community partners to try to get out and try to understand what's going on in the community, to try to reduce the workload. And I think what's happening is that because we have built so many great partnerships and friendships, people are really quick to call now, which is what we want. We want you to call, but with that, we're seeing an increase in workload, which actually decreases our response time to get to you sometimes. So let's talk about the current trends. So right now, you can see on the little slide here that we're seeing an increase in frauds. And I think that's no surprise to anyone in the room with the amount of times you're reading in the paper that, you know, and every time you go to the bank, they're telling you to protect your identity. The amount of media messaging you've heard in the last couple of years about the CRA, that the CRA are not going to phone you and say you owe taxes. They're not going to show up at your house and arrest you, but I can tell you, we've actually had people who are committing fraud, who are constantly phoning, and they will show. Some have showed up at the house, and we've actually made arrests on that. So frauds are up. So I'm still always cautioning people to watch their identity. Identity theft is still a big issue. So intimate partner incidents. So this is something we used to call domestic violence, but now we call it intimate partner. So we are seeing a dramatic increase in intimate partner domestic violence occurrences. So much so you'll see a slide later on. This is the #1 priority call for us. This is the call that takes the most time for officers. And we have, over the last few years, all I've been talking about is the mental health calls, how they impact on us, and how we're making a lot of apprehensions under the Mental Health Act. But right now, in the last year or so, we've been seeing a real spike in intimate partner domestic violence incidents. Now, is this because we have got a great crime prevention team out there and partnering with all the social groups to talk about the importance of phoning in, reporting, living in a healthy relationship? And, you know, as part of the school resource officer programs, we start educating kids in grade 8 to talk about healthy relationships, things you know, what you should expect in a relationship, because that's some of the things that if the students don't get taught that, they're often not taught that, they don't see that in their own home. And we're finding, and I'm hearing from my community leaders, that the calls being made to police are being made by the children. So they're asking us to educate the children so the children will call and report the parents and report problems in the home, and we're seeing that by the numbers. So you see electronic use of devices, so people are still driving down, and I'm going to challenge you like I do every year, when you leave here tonight, put your phone in the trunk. If you've got this addiction to your phone, you got to put it in the trunk. Because you're going to get to a stop sign or a stoplight, and you're going to look around, and unless you're parked beside me, everyone's going to be on their phone. So much so that I often want to jump out of my cruiser at intersections, and my executive officer, Dale, automatically puts the car lock on, so I can't jump out of the car. Because in the past, I have to admit, I have jumped out of the car a couple times to speak to people, to say, really, are you on your phone? Someone recently said to me at an event, but it's okay when I get to a stoplight, I've got a minute or two that I can pick up my phone, and I'm like, are you kidding me? No, you can't. And then they were trying to convince me that I was wrong. And I'm like, I'm wrong? Really? I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. So we're still seeing a lot of electronic use. We're trying to change that culture. It's not happening. So you can see mental health calls are still up. I've got a unique slide on that. So you're still seeing they are. I'm not trying to say those calls are going away. We spend a lot of our time apprehending people, taking them to hospital, and that's often where the police resources are tied up. So if you go to a hospital, an emergency ward for an appendix or a broken limb, and you see a lot of cruisers, unfortunately, that's often the case is the officers have apprehended people and they're waiting here. So impaired driving is down. Isn't that great news? That's fabulous. Isn't that great? Okay, so what's the bad news? The bad news is legalization of cannabis is coming up. And I can tell you from my counterparts in the States, impaired driving is going to increase. And I've got a slide that's just going to talk about legalization of marijuana and cannabis. Motor vehicle collisions for personal injury are down, which is good. So I think we investigate over 20,000 motor vehicle collisions every year. Every year I do, when I go to regional council, I ask for more officers based on our population. Our population is increasing on average 17,000 a year, but 27,000 more cars. So explain the math to me. I don't get it. Because everyone's having multiple cars, but we're getting a lot more cars on the roads. I think you saw it today when you're probably trying to get here today. There's a lot more cars on the road. So accidents involving injuries are down, which is good, but accidents are still up. Break-in entries to residence is down, but I think a lot of people are going to the crime prevention academies. They're learning about crime prevention through environmental design. So they're learning to put on motion sensor lights. They're learning to trim back those bushes and make their house more accessible so everyone on the street can see it and then maybe phone in if they see someone suspicious. Our drug charges are down, but I think that's going to continue to go down, especially with the introduction of the legalization of marijuana. And then later on down the road, there'll be introduction of more decriminalization of drugs. So road safety is a big priority for Peel Police, and you know, when I go to the Healthy City Stewardship meetings in Mississauga, people laughed when I said, well, I'm here because I can keep everyone healthy by giving enforcement. So when my officers give out tickets for seatbelts and electronic devices and speeding, and everyone in the room kind of chuckled thinking I was kidding, and then they looked at me and they went, I'm not kidding. I said, they keep you safe. So you may drive by here and go to this meeting and think people are the officers out there harassing somebody, giving them a ticket. I said, they're giving them a ticket for speeding or a disobey stop sign. That's actually keeping everyone safe. So our tickets are up. So on average in Peel, so we do Mississauga, Brampton, 1.4 million. We're writing 242 tickets a day. So often you're driving by and you think, okay, I wonder what the officers are doing today. You're really going to find out. We're actually doing quite a lot. So electronic devices, I actually think there's, so we're giving it an average 13 a day. I really think you could probably spot 13 on your way home. I challenge you to do it. Drive home. How many people can you spot driving with electronic device today? So a lot of that. 2016, we lost 40 people on the streets of Brampton, Mississauga for motor vehicle fatal collisions. Last year, the numbers were 28. And on average, the last 5 years has been 26 to 27. 2016 was an anomaly, but 28 is far too many. I think right now we stand at 5. So right now we're below, but it's still a big concern. So requests for assistance. So as you can see over the years, we track mental health calls. So, and these are apprehensions under the Mental Health Act of Ontario. So, and I keep saying this is not something that the police should be responsible for. This is not, but the families who are in crisis, nobody else, they don't know who else to call. And they're only going to call when they fear that somebody who is in crisis is going to cause danger to themselves or cause danger to others. And that's when we get involved and we apprehend. So I thought today I've got a short video. I want to intro the video by saying this is an actual call that occurred in Mississauga, but all the actors in this movie all work for Peel Police. You may see some of them in the room today, but it's an actual call. Some of the footage you'll see from the news station, that's actual footage. So we removed all the identifiers, and then after I'll tell you why I brought this little piece of paper up to talk about my notes. So I'm going to double click here because following instructions very well.
911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
Hi, I'm calling from security from 70 Absolute in Mississauga. There's like an individual on the 26th floor. He's doing something really weird by the electrical room, and he's like running cables. And I just called my superintendent just to check, and he said to call 911 because he hasn't seen this guy before, and he's doing something really weird.
We'll get the officers out there as soon as we can, okay?
Okay.
The complainant is security, reporting that there's a male party on the 26th floor at the electrical box running cables.
911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
Police.
For what address?
70 Absolute. Basically, one of the neighbors tied the door, and we cannot get out. Basically, he's like keeping us hostage.
Okay, there are officers downstairs, so they will be coming up to your floor to deal with him.
Subject is in 26, just locked himself in. He's not coming out. 10-4. Can you advise TAC?
10-4. TAC 4 call?
TAC 4, copy that.
111. I'm going to be heading up to the 26th floor. The super is going to be waiting in the lobby. He's got the master keys in case TAC or Sergeant requires them.
It looks like unit 26. There's a wire attached to the handle, which is metal, and it's actually plugged into an outlet. There's wires that the person put all over the floor that are live.
12 J copy. Can you advise fire to have them attend, please?
10-4 will do. We are going to try to contact Hydro to get the power shut down to that building.
Yes, sir. Do you have a vantage point from our camera?
Yeah, I'm just trying to confirm which, it's fairly 6 balconies down on the right-hand side.
Just advising, we now have a male party on the line. His name is... He is inside unit 26. He states the door is barricaded. He can't get out. His partner is also inside the apartment. Just be advised, as per the DI, the incident on Absolute has been deemed a critical incident. Mission is the safe surrender of the victim and subject, all the while maintaining the priorities of life.
Just, Sarge, so we're just going to ensure that the elevators are clear, that no one's on them, so I'm going to get the super to shut them down right now.
12C, any update on the power being cut?
Sergeant 12 today's with Hydro outside of the building.
Just advising, our call taker still does have on the phone. He states he's going to try and open the door. There is a golden retriever that is 10-7. He says friendly, and our call taker can hear yelling in the background about electrical things.
10-4.
Sources say that a male has barricaded himself inside the complex, and the police are treating it as a hostage situation.
You let media know over at number 50 Absolute. She wants to head over here.
And for media relations, one copy at 50 Absolute.
Copy, heading over.
Part 2, our hostage negotiators are going to assume control of the situation. So if I can have communications ceased with inside the unit.
10-4, copy.
12 CMG1, just to advise, shut off the power to 26.
Unit 26, there was some wires attached to the door. They are 10-4 right now. They've advised they're 10-4. We're going to try and figure out what's happening in the other unit right now.
For the call, we have one male in custody right now. Doing the call on the second male.
One male in custody, 10-4.
Sorry, TAC 5, both parties are in custody and the house is clear. TAC 5, if there's a 10-3 on, you can probably hear that as well.
TAC 5, 10-4, SHK 706, all units to resume normal transmission. Station clear at 1201.
12C, all units can clear except for the 3 I have assigned to the 26th floor.
A lot of the video you saw was recreated. Some of the video, you see the tactical officers, you know, jumping from one balcony to another, and the dog, that's actually real footage. So a lot of it was real footage as well. So this was a call regarding a mental health. Neighbors didn't really know what was going on. They just knew somebody was laying a bunch of live wires out on there. So we responded. So a lot of the footage you had. So that call took 4 hours and 20 minutes of our time. We were actually there on scene 9 hours, because then we had to then process the scene, take photographs and take fingerprints and do all that. But that active call that you just saw with the helicopter flying over and all the trucks and the hydro, 4 hours and 20 minutes. So this is in 12 Division, Superintendent Rob Ryan's division. So thank you, Rob, for all the work you do and your officers here. You're having lunch with the officers today. So what else was going on during those 4 hours and 20 minutes? Because, you know, everyone says, okay, that's only one event. So, okay, so what else are you guys doing? So this is what else we were doing. During that same time, we received 522 911 calls. The dispatchers dispatched 424 calls. We actually received to the communication center 998 calls, so almost 1,000 calls during those 4 hours. And just 12 Division alone, because you've got Rob Ryan here at 12 Division, the commander there, and then you've got Superintendent Heather Raymore sitting beside him, 11 Division, the also commander at Mississauga. 64 calls were actually being dispatched within 12 Division. And you would often think, well, weren't all the officers there? Because that's what I was thinking. So the one little piece of paper I have is, so of all the calls being dispatched, there were 74 traffic stops also going on in the region. We responded to 28 motor vehicle collisions in that 4-hour period. So not on that call, there was 28 motor vehicle collisions we were also responding to. We had 19 alarm calls, 17 domestics. So 17 you know, I saw that number is increasing. That's what's causing us the most work these days. Intimate partner, domestic violence, 17 of them in that 4.5-hour period. 17 theft unders, 17 frauds, and 16 nonverbal 911. So if I call 911 and I'm nonverbal, I don't say anything, we follow up. We'll phone you back to check on you, and if we don't phone you back, we're going to phone you back, and if you say everything's fine, we often still are going to go check on you to make sure everything's fine. So those are the things, so that's the stats I really kind of wanted to make sure. 74 traffic stops, 28 motor vehicle collisions, 19 alarms, 17 domestics, 17 theft unders, 17 frauds, and 16 non-verbal 911s. Not calling just the 911s, because remember there was 522 911s, but 17 of them, there's 16 of them, where nobody was on the phone talking. So that really puts us into a state that we really have to check into it. So this is what's going on every day in Peel. So when that's not going on, I think most of you in the room know me, I'm a big person for stats. I'm always asking for stats, which is, you know, some people cringe, go, oh, no, or just send an email. I just received a phone call from the chief. I'm looking for more stats. So A few years ago, we started tracking shootings and stabbings because I've been seeing a trend of increasing violent crime, so I'm starting to talk about victims. So let's look at the victims of shootings. In 2015, we had 24 victims of shootings. In 2016, we saw it spike to 38, and in 2017, there were 40. So what about stabbing? So you're thinking, okay, well, great, the stabbings seem to be going down. 187 to 196, 156, that's a drop of 40, that's great. Unfortunately, I looked at the stats just this year. We're actually trending up for stabbings this year. While our solvency rate for stabbings is a little higher than shootings, because normally when people are close enough to stab you, we're hoping that we're going to be able to get a description and work on that. Shootings we're really struggling with because a lot of the shootings we're investigating, a lot of people in the room, a lot of people at the party, a lot of people in the parking lot, nobody sees anything. So we're struggling with. So then I started, you know, because I'm really starting to get into the weeds and picky on things. So let's start counting, because what my concern was that everyone seems to be becoming so accustomed to seeing the Brampton Guardian and the Mississauga News reporting on the shootings, and they're going to think this is what we should be accepting as the new norm. This is not the new norm for me or for my officers. So I said, well, let's start counting bullets, and I only want to count the real bullets. I don't want to talk about the replicas or the, you know, the pellet guns or the water guns. I want to talk about real bullets. So look at the trend we're seeing with real rounds being discharged. 135 to 272 to 426. So in my office, on my desk, I've got jars. A lot of people have jelly bean jars on their desk. I've got jars of bullet casings, empty casings, from our range, not from crime scenes, from our range where we practice our shooting. And right now, my bullet jar for this year, and I looked at the numbers last week, we're at 126 discharges. We're actually just getting into the summer months, so that's my concern. My concern is for my community. My concern is for my officers responding to these calls. When I first started policing, if you got a gun off the street, you found a gun, you were like a hero. You were a hero for a good year. Right now, officers are getting guns off the street, multiple guns off the street all the time. So this is also the calls they're responding to. Well, so what's the good news? You're thinking, okay, Chief, I really was feeling safe when I got here today. I'm not feeling so safe right now. And you know what? You should feel safe, because we are still ranked one of the safest cities, and our solvency rate is above the national and above the provincial average. And our crime rates are below. So that's the good news. Because I think that's what everyone says, oh my God, those stats are horrible. But they're horrible. The fact is, you see those stats, but you need to know that the officers every day are doing such great work. And, you know, we saw this incident, which is a real incident that occurred, seamlessly. The officers and the civilian employees of Peel Regional Police handled and managed all those calls, and probably no one even read about that call in the media, because these are things that are going on every day behind the scenes. So when you're walking down the street, you have that feeling of safety. So I'm mindful of my time. I'm mindful of the fact that this is going to become legalized. So I just want to put everyone's mind to it. Everyone, I think, still has the idea, because marijuana is becoming legal, this is great. I can actually walk my dog and smoke a joint, and I can do all these things. You can't. You have to put the legalization of marijuana in your head like alcohol. So you know you can't walk down the street carrying a bottle of beer or a bottle of vodka. You can't drive your car smoking a joint, because it's like driving a car with a beer bottle in your hand or with a drink. And while some people do it, it is illegal. So I thought we'd put this, you know, this message up to say legalization, reminding you that it's still unlawful to smoke at the workplace. It's still unlawful to smoke cannabis in a public place, in a vehicle, in a school. They've made restrictions regarding retirement and nursing homes. Well, that's a good news. And indoor common areas of condominiums. So if you live in a condo, an apartment, on the common area, it is. But that's not to say if you're living in an apartment, Joe next door wants to be smoking up all night with his friends. I'm asking you, please don't call the police, because they're allowed to do that when this becomes legal. And we're not sure how we're going to manage the calls that we're still going to get, because I anticipate we're still going to get calls on this. So then we talk about recognizing drug impaired. So you know, when I saw earlier that impaired driving is going down, we've seen from our American police, law enforcement in the States, they saw an increase in impaired driving by drug. And how does it impact you? It impacts your reaction time. Well, that's not good. Your coordination, your concentration, and your decision making. Well, your decision making is problematic if you're driving down the street smoking a joint. So that's also a problem. But so how does this impact you in the community? It's going to impact calls for service. So that means I may be coming next year or the following year for more money for more officers. Officers are going to be tied up going to nuisance calls for neighbor disputes, because there's going to be a lot of neighbor disputes, because it's going to be like, wait a second, I just put this beautiful landscaping in my yard. I want my kids out here to play by the pool, and I got, you know, Johnny next door having his friends over all weekend, and they're smoking up all weekend. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of nuisance calls. Drug impaired recognition. So we have officers who are trained impaired drug recognition experts. On average, that course costs $4,000. We have to send officers away for 3 weeks to do that training. So it's going to impact on training, and it's going to impact on resources. So that's going to have an impact on policing and response. Opioids is another thing. So Superintendent Barry Dolan's here, who does great work with the regional partners and the stakeholder group, talking about the impacts of legalization of marijuana, as well as the opioid crisis. And you know, everyone talks about the opioid crisis. Well, is it really serious? And I'm not really sure. I mean, we tried to send a message to say, this is really serious. So you hear about morphine. Everyone knows about morphine back in the day, that people got addicted to morphine, and, you know, and heroin, that was concerning. Well, look, fentanyl and carfentanil. So that the deadly combination of those drugs, and fentanyl is being mixed in with many drugs these days. So kids are going to parties and they're thinking they're taking one drug, and the next thing you know, it's being mixed with fentanyl. And we're seeing a lot more crisis. So they talk about the opioid crisis. It's only because we're seeing such a spike in numbers of people dying because they're overdosing on drugs they didn't know they were even taking. So we have a strategy. We work with our regional partners. We work with the Doctor of Public Health. But that's also a concern that's also impacting on frontline as well. I mean, I don't think I need to do any more of a plug here. I think you did such a great job talking about all the work we do with the Crossroads Youth Academy, and you know, our partners at the community liaison officers at 11 Division and 12 Division work with, and I'm going to your neighbors' night out. So I think it's important to know that we actually have a great relationship with Mississauga Safe City, because we as the police can't do it all. We can't. We're looking for people to partner with us to try and send out crime prevention strategies so we have less calls for service. So, you know, I think if anything, when we do our annual surveys every year, they always wonder, what does the police do with it? Do you actually even interact with the youth? So we actually do. We've got a youth in policing initiative. This is a grant we get from the government. And in the last couple of years, since 2009, we've been hiring summer students for 8 weeks. And this year we're hiring 20. And this year the board, the Police Services Board, are going to be funding 5 more. And with the help of Safe City Mississauga and United Way, they were going to send us a youth counselor. So that's 26 youth who are going to actually be embedded in with field police and work with us for the summer. You know, and we've got a whole presentation to talk about the benefits of when they show up the first day. They're like, okay, I got to work with the police all summer. And then on the last day, they're looking at how they can come in next summer. They're looking at how they can find a job with us, because their view on what they expected, what police do, and what we really do out there changes. I can't even begin to talk about the life-changing experience it's made for these young people. So, and I think you've covered off the youth, all the work that we do at the Crossroads Youth Academy. But we also have the Safety Village, the Children's Safety Village, which is up at Kennedy Road and near the Powerade Center. So 11,000 students are being trained annually to talk about cybercrime, internet crime, and to talk about don't give away your identity. You know, we put them into the Safety Village. We give them all this education. We don't talk to strangers online, and then we test them in a safe environment. And we find that despite the fact all of the education we're giving them, they're actually still giving personal details to strangers. So, but the strangers are actually just the police officers testing them, so it is very safe. But these are things we are often doing behind the scenes as well. You know, with engaging with our community partners, and I think you know that, you know, the safer vision together, you know, our vision is a safer community together, because we cannot do it alone. So we work on initiatives in areas. We don't just do enforcement. Like, I'm way past enforcement. Our officers do a lot of enforcement, but they do so much more engagement with the community. So people call, they get that there's a problem, they recognize it's their problem as well because they live in the neighborhood, and they call the police, and we come up with investigative strategies or crime prevention strategies and initiatives to get people talking in the community to work together to solve the issues. This is a new program which we're going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. I first heard about this. I sit on the International Association of Chiefs of Police, their Human and Civil Rights Committee, and I saw a presentation that Vancouver is the first police service in Canada to introduce this, so Peel will be the first in Ontario. And basically what this is, we've approached the Board of Trades for Mississauga and Brampton, and we're going to be putting these stickers in. Really what this does is it guarantees it's a safe place, that people in the LGBT community recognize that if they're being bullied or they have any concerns, that this is a safe place for them to go and to call the police or call a friend. So Safe Place program is being introduced in the next couple of weeks. So for the people who are in here who are on their Board of Trade, Mississauga or Brampton, I really appreciate your support on this, so thank you for that. Crime prevention initiatives. So you know that everyone wants to sell things online. Everyone wants to go, Kijiji, I don't really want my bike anymore, I never ride it, or that exercise bike that I definitely never ride, I'm going to put that online and I'm going to book it, but I really don't want strangers coming to my house, and I really encourage you not to have strangers go to your house. So often you're planning your meeting at malls or gas stations, and we were seeing a trend that people were still getting robbed at malls and in gas stations. So we came up with the idea, or it was presented, that we would set up 2 parking spaces in 11 Division and 12 Division and 22 Division, and people would come and you would meet at that parking spot in the police parking lot and you would exchange. And we are hoping, not guaranteeing, we are hoping there's a less likelihood that you will be robbed if you were in a police, but I'm saying, I'm hoping, and less likely as opposed to it's an absolute guarantee that you won't be robbed. But so we're going to be expanding that to all the divisions as well, because we're actually seeing, when we first put the signs out, we were thinking, okay, how are we going to monitor this? Are we going to put a camera? How are we going to monitor it? But we're actually, it's quite obvious. People are coming in, parking there, doing the quick exchange, and they're not drug deals, so they're doing the quick exchange of their bicycles or their pieces of property they want to sell online, and it's much safer. People have the comfort, the seller and the buyer both feel comfortable saying, okay, so I know when I bring my money, I'm gonna sell this and I'm not gonna get robbed. So we're really seeing an uptake on that, so we're gonna expand that program. And say our Crime Prevention Academy and our Cyber Academy, I think we've talked about already. We run 3 of these programs a year. As soon as we put them on our website, and the seats get filled up really quickly because they offer such informative sessions. They're nighttime sessions. I often go in and just pop in. And, people are like, okay, that's nice to see you, Chief, but don't interrupt because we're listening to a really good speaker here right now, because really engaging the community come out, and those seats fill up in those academies. So if you're wanting to get more information on cybercrime and internet use, please get online, look at our website, and look at our Cyber Academy. So, okay, so you've asked me and you told me all these things are going on. So last year I presented saying I was originally going to be asking for 22 more officers, but in light of the increasing workload, I went and asked for 37. I asked for 10 more communicators. Well, you can see that, the amount of calls that come in. 1,000 911 calls a day are coming into our communication center. We actually do a lot of training about trying to avoid the false 911 calls. Or, I think we were doing a campaign a couple of weeks ago about saying, just because your pizza is over the 30 minutes, don't call 911. So there's a lot of those crazy calls we still get. But on average, the communicators in our police service are working really, really hard. So we've asked for an increase in that because of the demand. So prisoner escort officers, these are the officers who work at the courthouse up on Highway 10. If you saw the construction going on, they're adding 8 more courtrooms. So you know what that's a good sign of? I know from my counterparts in other jurisdictions, the courts aren't that busy. In Peel, the courts are becoming busier because officers are doing a lot of arrests. And last year, we processed 31,000 prisoners through that courthouse. And they're adding 8 more courtrooms. So we did 31,000 prisoners last year. They're adding 8 more courtrooms. So this year, we added 5 new prisoner escort officers. So note to self, I'll be asking for more prisoner escort officers for next year as well. And every time we support the front line, we need civilian staff to support us as well, so I'll be asking for extra civilian support staff as well in our new budget. But this is this year's budget. So in case you saw the paper going, the chief's the most inexpensive, the budget the police is, it is. But this is the reason why. We're pretty busy out there. But we're also trying to find technology and efficiencies to try and streamline the way we do policing. So we have a new mobile command center. Unfortunately, it's actually used quite a lot. Any big incidents go on, so instead of running the incident from the headquarters or from the division. We actually put a mobile command post out, and that way the officers working on that incident are deployed right to that scene, and then we set up a staging area, and that's what we run from. So that's the big command post you see. You saw in the video the drone that was being used, the unmanned aerial vehicle. We've just bought 2 of them just in the last few months, and they're getting a lot of use. This isn't for, hey, let's go see what's going on in somebody's backyard. We're not doing that. We're using it for accident reconstruction. We're using it for missing people. Often, you know, we would have to call out the helicopter from neighboring jurisdictions when we had missing seniors going missing at nighttime. Now we can actually redeploy our drone, put it up in the sky with an infrared, and look for people who were lost. So we're using that. So that's hopefully going to save resources. Most of you know, we actually also police on Lake Ontario. So we haven't got this new boat yet, because I said, oh, that's a really nice picture. Do we have that boat yet? So we do not have that. We have a similar one that's aging out. So we've actually do quite a lot of rescues, and I think one of our rescues was highlighted a few months ago in the Mississauga News when officers went out to rescue somebody who was out in a huge windstorm and couldn't get in, and the officers had to go out and put their lives at risk to go out and rescue that person, and they were successful in doing that. So in order to do that, we have to give the officers the right equipment to go out and do this. So where are we moving to in the future? So in the future, we're looking at crime analytics. So we're just not going to redeploy officers to areas where we think the calls are. We're going to be looking at where we know the calls are. So that's where we're going to redeploy our sources. We're also going to be monitoring social media. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a story that made the news that we phoned a parent and said, we understand your son's having a big party at the mansion tonight. And the parent basically said, you can't tell me if my son can have a party. And later on, we had to dispatch. There was 8,000 people showed up at this party. So we monitor those things. We hope that we're going to find people who are going to listen to us when we say, you should cancel that party. Can I just get my glass of water, Lyndon? Sorry. Excuse me. And I didn't mean to put crime analytics and social media monitoring with Casualty Bureau, because then you're thinking, what is that connection? But what it is us trying to be prepared for mass casualty events. We also do a lot of emergency planning. We recently did one at Square One. We did one with regional partners. We host them annually at the airport in the event of anything going on at the airport. So we work with emergency preparedness partners in the region to be prepared for those events. So we like to throw this in to show you that we are just not reacting. We are proactively planning and preparing, so God forbid something happens, we will be ready to respond. I always like to try to end on a good news. So most of you know that we've moved our headquarters from the 1981 building that was on Highway 10 in Steeles. It's now been renamed to the Sir Robert Peel Center, named after the police service, Sir Robert Peel. And we've moved over to 7150 Mississauga Road, which is at Mississauga Road and Derry. So we have yet to have our official opening. We're going to have a museum that's going to be opening up in the next month, and then we'll be announcing an official opening for our new headquarters. So if you're driving by and you're seeing the new building, we just recently got our sign. It's a beautiful building. It houses the executive, human resources, finance, our media relations bureau, so a lot of operational planning. The people who put my slides together, they're here. Corporate planning and research, they're all here. So it's a beautiful building, and we will be filling up the Sir Robert Peel Center with more people. We'll be moving them out of our location at 180 Derry, so there's still a lot of moving parts within the facilities at Peel Police. Today we launched our new website, so I encourage you to get on www.peelpolice.ca. Brand new website, less clicks, really easy to use. I was using it before I came down here. Really encouraged. So last year we had 1.5 million people visit our website. We're up to 158,000 followers on Twitter. So we're trying to make our information more streamlined. This way you can actually get emails delivered to you. You can get calendar events sent to you so you know where we are. And you can either go there or you'll at least know you can track us down. It shows which division you work in, who works in the division. If you've got a question, if you want to compliment an employee, if you want to complain about an employee, we've got it all on this brand new website. So I encourage you please to look at the new website. And the last slide, and I'm very happy about this, is to say that we've recently received our platinum level certification through Excellence Canada. So Excellence Canada is an outside organization that comes in and audits us as a police service. The Region of Peel have also been audited, so we came in and we received a platinum level in December 2017, a big award, and this talks about our innovations and the fact that we're doing electronic disclosures for our criminal packages, and the fact that we're doing e-learning, and many other strategies about wellness within the workplace and innovation. So I thought that was a nice one to end on. The good news story is, say last year, so although we're doing all these things, these are the stories you often don't hear about when you're seeing things in the news, so I thought I would take this opportunity to mention those. So, and I think that's it. Thank you very much.